In the heart of a sprawling city where skyscrapers kissed the clouds and expensive cars lined the boulevards, there lived a man named Richard Hale. He was a millionaire, a name whispered in corporate boardrooms, a face plastered on financial magazines, a man who had climbed his way up from nothing and built an empire. But along with wealth, Richard carried scars that money could never heal. Betrayals by business partners, backstabbing colleagues, and even a bitter divorce had carved deep trenches of mistrust in his heart. To him, everyone wanted something. Everyone had a price. Everyone except perhaps the one person he had never truly bothered to understand, his maid. Her name was Alina, a quiet woman in her early 40s, with a gentle demeanor and eyes that carried both sorrow and strength. She had been working in Richard's mansion for nearly 2 years. She was never late, never complained, and never left a corner of the grand home untouched by her care. Yet despite her dedication, Richard had always regarded her with suspicion. After all, who could truly be trusted when tempted by wealth? One rainy evening, as Richard sat in his study staring at the untouched glass of whiskey before him, an idea struck him. It was cruel, but in his mind necessary. He wanted to test her, to know once and for all whether even the woman who dusted his trophies and polished his marble floors could resist the lure of his fortune. He would leave his safe open, its gleaming steel door ajar, stacks of cash and glittering jewels sitting inside like bait in a trap. The following morning, before leaving for his office, Richard deliberately unlocked the safe in his study. Inside were bundles of $100 bills, some of his rare coin collections, and his late mother's diamond necklace. A piece of jewelry he had never once allowed anyone to touch. He left the door wide open, pretending as if he had forgotten. He then set the hidden cameras in his study to record every second. As his car pulled out of the driveway, Richard's mind buzzed with conflicting emotions. Part of him almost hoped Alina would fail, that she would prove his cynical view of humanity right. Another part, buried deep beneath layers of distrust, secretly prayed she would resist, that maybe, just maybe, someone in his world was still pure. Meanwhile, Alina began her daily chores. She moved silently through the mansion, dusting shelves, sweeping the gleaming marble floors, and humming softly to herself, a lullaby she used to sing to her daughter years ago. When she entered the study, she immediately noticed the safe. Her eyes lingered on it for a moment, the door wide open, the treasures inside shimmering under the golden rays of morning sunlight. Her heart skipped. She stepped closer, not out of greed, but concern. What if someone else entered the house? What if Richard's driver, gardener, or even an uninvited guest saw this? The fortune inside could vanish within seconds. She glanced around, her hands trembling slightly, then whispered to herself, "Why would he leave it open?" For a long moment, Elena simply stood there, staring at the open vault, her mind flooded with memories. She thought of her daughter, Sophia, who was in the hospital battling a chronic illness. The medical bills were crushing her spirit, each one heavier than the last. She thought of the nights she cried silently in her small apartment, clutching her rosary, begging for a miracle. And here, right before her, was enough money to save her daughter's life and more. Tears welled in her eyes. One step forward and her trembling hands could change everything. She could take just a single bundle of cash and no one might ever notice. Her daughter could finally receive the surgery she needed. The thought burned through her heart like fire. But then another memory surfaced. Her daughter's words. "Mama, you always tell me that honesty is worth more than gold. Even if we are poor, we still have our dignity, right?" Elena's lips quivered. She wiped her tears, inhaled sharply, and pulled herself together. Slowly, she closed the safe door, locking it securely with the code Richard had once absent-mindedly shared when instructing her to dust around it. She then took a small piece of paper and wrote a note. "Mr. Hale, you left your safe open this morning. I locked it for you. Please be careful with your valuables." She placed the note gently on his desk, right beside his fountain pen, and went on with her chores, though her heart still ached for the surgery her daughter so desperately needed. That evening, Richard returned home with an odd sense of anticipation. He hurried to his study, his heart pounding as he opened his laptop to view the hidden camera footage. For hours, he watched every second of Alina's movements. He saw her step into the room, saw her pause in front of the open safe, saw her tremble as she stared at the wealth before her. His breath caught. He thought, "Here it is. This is the moment she reveals her true colors." But what followed stunned him. He watched as she locked the safe, wrote a note, and continued cleaning with tears still in her eyes. Not once did she reach for the money. Not once did she falter. Richard's hands shook as he picked up the small note she had left. He read her handwriting over and over again until his vision blurred. For the first time in years, tears rolled down his face. Not tears of betrayal or anger, but tears of humility. All his life he had believed that loyalty could be bought, that kindness was a mask, that trust was nothing more than an illusion. Yet here was a woman with every reason to take what was not hers, choosing instead to uphold her dignity. She had passed the test he didn't even deserve to give. That night, Richard could not sleep. He kept thinking about the wariness in Alina's eyes, the silent pain she carried, and the fact that she had resisted temptation despite the desperate circumstances he sensed in her. He realized he knew nothing about her life beyond the walls of his mansion. For the first time, he wanted to know. For the first time, his hardened heart began to soften, and so began the journey of transformation. The story of a millionaire who set a trap for his maid, only to find himself caught instead by her integrity, her strength, and her unshakable honesty.